What are your expectations for him this year? I know that it's a difficult question, but they have upgraded a lot of spots. This time next year, what are we talking about with regard to Justin, in your opinion, Peter?
See, in my opinion, the reason it's going to be a pleasant surprise is that he knows exactly what is expected. And he understands that he's not the quarterback of the Bears for the next 5 years unless he grabs it right now and takes it.
Peter King joining us. He's on the CarX Tire and Auto Hotline, does great work, obviously, for NBC Football Morning in America. Peter, you dominated the offseason and had just awesome stuff. We talked to you one time around the Combine when you had the scoop with Poles. And I really felt by reading all your weekly columns that you got to know Poles a little bit better. And not a lot of us know him well yet. Let me ask you this question specifically about Ryan Poles. If you were faced with the task with Jalen Carter at 9, and you can get him at 9 knowing that you traded down, or you could take your choice of lineman like the Bears did, what would you do with the Bears in that position? Would you have done what Poles did, or would you have taken Jalen Carter?
I would have taken whoever was the best offensive tackle on my draft board. It's a very simple reason. The Philadelphia Eagles are at the point right now where they can afford to take a chance right there with Jalen Carter. And, no matter what happened in this draft, I want you to think about this. The Seattle Seahawks needed Jalen Carter. And before the draft, John Schneider basically said to his organization, look, we're not going to be afraid of taking anybody. If this guy's the best guy for our team, we're taking him. Okay? So that's one team. That's number 5. Number 6, the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell. They had a big need at interior defensive line. They passed on Jalen Carter. The Las Vegas Raiders, they had 4 big needs. One of them was an interior defensive lineman. They really needed Jalen Carter. They had him in their building. These teams all did. They passed on him. And then I'll just end with the Atlanta Falcons, right in Jalen Carter's backyard. Maybe they knew him better than anybody. They passed on him. So it isn't only that the Chicago Bears chose somebody else. You had 4 consecutive teams right before him who needed that position, and they all passed on him. So I don't think in any way, I don't look at it as the Chicago Bears being alone in their search for a really good, dominating interior defensive lineman and passing on Carter. I honestly view this as, look at their team. You saw it last year. Justin Fields running for his life. They just had to get better on the offensive line. And now, theoretically, they got a new right guard, a new right tackle opening day. They should be better. But the only way you're going to be able to really make a definitive judgment on Justin Fields is to make sure that you surround him with enough good players to make a rational judgment.
Peter, a second-year general manager and Ryan Poles had a lot on his plate and had a lot of resources to work with the benefit of hindsight at this point. How do you believe he navigated all of the things that have occurred after the end of the regular season? Well,
I think just if you look at the results, since the end of the season, he got what I would call not a top 10 receiver, but a top 20 receiver when this team desperately needed one. And last year on opening day, their only really good receiver of note was Darnell Mooney. And now they'll line up in 3 receiver sets with a good representative DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, and or Equanimeous St. Brown. And so they've improved there. They're better on the offensive line with Nate Davis and Darnell Wright, I believe. And I think on defense, clearly this is Ryan Poles working in tandem with a defensive-minded head coach. And this defensive-minded head coach believes that linebackers, not every coach, defensive or otherwise in the NFL, believes that linebackers are the way to go for today's football. And honestly, I think that it's going to be a very interesting experiment to see whether TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds can help control the line of scrimmage a little bit better than they did last year. And I would just say the last thing is that no one can ever tell about these rookies. No one can ever tell, who's going to be really good, who's not going to be really good. You pick a guy in the second round at a position of real importance, a corner, and look, we'll not know anything about Tyreek Stevenson for a while, but that turned out to be a big pick at a position of need. So, look, it's like, I don't really know. To me, the Bears are a really, really big mystery entering this season. I could see them being anywhere from the high teens to the low 20s to around 30, in the NFL power rankings. I really could, because we just don't know how they're going to put it all together. We don't know, whether Justin Fields, the passer, can be in the same league with Justin Fields, the runner. So, and that's what really this year, that's the most important thing to establish this year.
Before I read that note in Football Morning in America, I heard one of our shows read that, and I'm like, boy, Peter King, our buddy, our pal, who's on Waddle and Silvy a lot, has the Bears in the bottom 5. I was going to get pissed, Peter. And then I read your explanation on what you just explained, that they could go up to 13 based on Justin Fields' play. I think that's super fair. So based on that, Peter, I want to ask you this. And Mark Potash from the Sun-Times was just on the station yesterday, and he said there's more pressure on Eberflus than Justin Fields. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
I wouldn't. I don't really. Hey, look, I respect Mark. He's around the team 50 times more than I am. I'm around the team 1 or 2 days a year, so I don't know this team the way he knows it. But in my opinion, I think there is a lot of pressure on Eberflus because of what they did in free agency and the money they spent at a position that a lot of teams don't really view as a preeminent position. So those two guys really have to be excellent from the jump and impact players for this team. That's number one. But everything that the Bears have done, everything Ryan Poles has done, essentially, why did he fight to include DJ Moore in this trade? I mean, I think he probably would rather have had, the defensive tackle or the pass rusher with Carolina, but Carolina had made it clear right from the start that they weren't going to include those guys. So, but DJ Moore, you could argue, maybe isn't as important, but he's a really important piece. And they've done a lot to help Justin Fields, but now this is a year where Justin Fields is going to have to make significant progress because, look, you have to make a lot of decisions on Justin Fields based on what happens this year, about maybe signing him to a long-term deal or at least exercising the 5th-year option, things like that. And to me, I just think it's the biggest year is for Justin Fields.
I agree with you 100%.
We're all in agreement. Yeah.
I think for sure there's more pressure on Justin, and for all the reasons that you just mentioned. What are your expectations for him this year? I know that it's a difficult question, but they have upgraded a lot of spots. This time next year, what are we talking about with regard to Justin, in your opinion, Peter?
See, in my opinion, the reason it's going to be a pleasant surprise is that he knows exactly what is expected. And he understands that he's not the quarterback of the Bears for the next 5 years unless he grabs it right now and takes it. And look, you see what happens when you're a high draft choice of a team and that team puts a lot of faith in you. You got 2 or 3 years. You don't have 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Okay? Justin Fields knows exactly. He's talked to Ryan Poles. He's talked to Matt Eberflus. He, I believe, understands completely that if he has a subpar year and completes 56% of his passes with 18 touchdowns and 16 interceptions, that they're likely going to be in pursuit of a quarterback next year. And to me, I think when I look at him just as a person, a worker, and look at him at his best times, Bill Walsh once told me after drafting Charles Haley, this is 100 years ago, they drafted Charles Haley, who was a third-round pick out of James Madison. And the reason they drafted him so high, higher than anybody else would have, and obviously did because they picked him, is he said, I've seen tape of this guy, and I've seen him do it 4 or 5 times where he dominates a good level of competition. And if you see somebody do something at that level 4 or 5 times, we're professional coaches. We should be able to coach him to do it all the time. And Bill Walsh and that staff did. And then he went on to Dallas. Obviously, he had a weird career, but he had a Hall of Fame career. And that is what I believe the Chicago Bears feel in putting this quarterback in the hands of Luke Getsy and in putting him in the hands of a good coaching staff with significantly upgraded talent. And look, we're going to know. I think you're going to watch him for 17 games this year, however many games he plays. And I think by the end of the year, you're going to know. It's not going to be, we got to give him another year. I think what'll happen with him is the kind of year that happened with the New York Giants and Daniel Jones. It really looked like it was trending in the middle for Daniel Jones. And if you had to guess, you probably wouldn't guess that he was going to be a long-term guy. And I'd say it's even a little bit more positive about Justin Fields entering this year, but there definitely is a question, and he knows it. So I think he's going to respond, and I think at the end of the year, people will be comfortable with him being the long-term quarterback of the Bears.
Peter, also in your article, you're telling us we should not buy our airline tickets to Germany.
Hey, look, I'm just going to tell you that when teams choose to go or are assigned to go, they are allowed to request to the league, one game that they don't want to have to play overseas. In other words, that they would keep in their home stadium. I am told that the Chiefs, and this is not binding, but I'm told the Chiefs requested that they wanted the Bears to be a home game at Arrowhead Stadium this year. And again, we'll see if that works out. But look, the Bears in Kansas City, in Frankfurt, Germany, I saw the first game ever in Germany last year, Seattle and the Bucks. That was an absolute event. And I told, it's funny, Roger Goodell, late in the year, I was talking to him about something, and he said, hey, you went, what did you think of that game? And I said, to me, that had the electricity of a conference championship game. Those people in Germany love the NFL like, your 18-year-old daughter loves Taylor Swift. And I mean, they were out of their gourds over this game. And Munich just rolled out the red carpet. It'll be the same way in Frankfurt. I've been a skeptic for a long time about NFL teams in Europe. Man, I don't know whether they're ever going to put one there because there's a lot of owners in the league who don't want to do it. But I think if they ever do, it will be insanely popular over in Europe.